I bring greetings to you from the Diocese of Saskatoon, and let me tell you what a treat it is to leave winter wonderland and come to this. The smell of the ocean is such a delight, having lived on the East Coast, but here, of course, you have green most of the year, and so it's all the more delightful. Thank you for this privilege, Christine. And to Bishop Anna, of course, it is customary when one bishop is visiting another diocese to alert the diocesan bishop that they'll be in the diocese. And Bishop Anna asked, "Oh, would you like to preach?" And I said, No, I'm happy to just sit in the back pew somewhere. I'll trail along with Father Jack, and it'll be. She said, "No, let me reword that. Where would you like to preach?" I wasn't getting off the hook. And it seems to be providential, too, with Christine suffering from the plague. God bless you. Having been in your shoes, I know it is a treat not to have to preach when you are not feeling well and when you're struggling with your voice and breath itself. So thank you for having me, St. George's, especially on this wonderful occasion that is the reign of Christ. Such a triumphant way to finish off our church year. Such a crescendo to our calendar before we embark on a brand new year. To finish off with rejoicing and celebration in acknowledging the sovereignty of Jesus, of our God's working love in our lives. Of course, the reign of Christ the King came about after the First World War, when the world was in the depths of despair and hopelessness and destruction and terror and fear and all of the fallout from the Great War, which I have yet to know why it was called the Great War, with the destruction that it wrought on the globe, the effects of which are still being felt in families, in the global family. The church's response, pastoral response to this post-war situation was to offer a feast, a commemoration, a celebration, if you will, to remind not only the church but the world that we do indeed have hope. That especially when all seems lost, we have a God who is sovereign indeed and who has conquered and triumphed over evil, sin, death, and that we are to have hope. It does not fit then for us to have the reading of the crucifixion on such a triumphant Sunday. Tell me who chose this gospel reading for the lectionary for the reign of Christ the King Sunday. Now we know, as the redeemed, the saved on this side of history, that of course the cross was a triumph for us. That God went to suffering, to sacrifice, to those lengths for us, to save us from the kind of sin and terror and catastrophe that we tend to inflict on each other and the world, such as in war. But it does not sit well to celebrate the reign of Christ and to then hear the gospel of Jesus hanging there upon the cross in what, no matter how you approach it, feels like defeat. I have a story for you. There was a man who owned a very beautiful house. I realize I'm running a bit of risk here, but just picture it one of those beautiful homes along the water that I drove past on the way here. This story is not about you if you live in one of those homes. But just so that you can be in situ with me, picture it. And this man loved his home. It was not only shelter, but it was a beloved sanctuary where his family had been raised, where grandchildren came to visit, where there were feasts, where they had cried, and all of it, you know. And so he was surprised when a knock came to his door, and there was a man there who said he wanted to buy his house. There was no for sale sign. There was no indication that the house was for sale. And so the homeowner was a bit surprised, but friendly, after all, Canadian. Oh, I'm sorry, the house is not for sale. I know that, said the potential purchaser, but I want to buy your home. Money is no object. Name your price. And the homeowner was getting a little hot under the collar at this, you know. Come on, I've said it's not for sale. But the purchaser was persistent and pushed and pushed. The homeowner went to close the door on him, finally, after arguing this through, and the purchaser put his foot there in the door. I don't think you understand how serious I am. I am buying your home. Absolutely not. Homeowner got the door closed and locked it. That was the end of that. But it wasn't. The persistent purchaser was back a few days later. And so the homeowner opened the door, but, left the chain on. I've told you it is not for sale. The purchaser says, I must own a piece of your home. I am obsessed with it. It is the most beautiful home I've ever seen. And so would you sell me just one nail upon the wall in your home? Like, is this guy a lunatic? The homeowner is thinking, what is this? And he's really, annoyed by this persistence. And so he thinks, well, this guy obviously is not well. So if this will get rid of him, I'll sell him a nail. And so he named his price, and the persistent purchaser paid gladly. Closed the door, done and dusted. Hoped never to see him again until a couple days later, when the persistent purchaser showed up with a bag of potatoes and legal documentation showing that he did indeed rightfully and truly own that one nail there upon the wall in the man's beloved home, and that because that was by law truly his nail, the homeowner had to do with that nail as the owner of the nail wanted him to do. And so he handed him the bag of potatoes and said, hang these on my nail and do not remove them. Okay, this is weird. So homeowner, again, to get rid of them, took the potatoes, hung them on the nail. And anyone who has smelled rotten potato will know what soon followed. The homeowner consulted his lawyer, the police, and realized that actually the nail owner did have the right to this situation. that this must be as he had indicated. And over a bit of time, potatoes began to smell and rot, and liquid began to come out of the potato bag, and there were flies. Now, I come from the prairies where, the potatoes are grown. And at the time of year when they're cleaning out the potato barns, I can tell you, having grown up on a cattle farm, that is worse smelling than animal manure. The rotten potato left, honestly. The neighbors could hardly stand it, as was the case with the homeowner. His neighbors were complaining. It got to the point where he couldn't live in the home anymore. It was so bad. And so he gave up. He left. You see, my friends, when we give in to sin, when we give in to the darkness that pushes in on the light that is within us and all around us, even just a little bit, even just one nail in the whole house that is our being, there is an effect. And it is cumulative, because then we do it again with just one other little thing and just one more other little thing. We give way and we make concession and excuses. And eventually, the smell begins to permeate our lives. And this is the opposite of having Christ in light and glory and triumph reign in our hearts and in our lives. When we give in just a little bit, over and over and over again, as we tend to do as human beings, we are confirming that Jesus is not sovereign over us, that we are, and that worse, maybe someone else is. And so this morning, let us push back against the darkness and affirm the light of our sovereign God, who triumphs even in the face of the very worst depravity and sin and darkness and death. So that when it feels as though our home is crumbling, our interior home, the home around us, as though it is being taken over by sin, whether our own or others, that we can find hope, as we are meant to do, in the fact that Jesus has triumphed once and for all through 3 nails. And let us hang our hope, our joy, our reason for being upon those nails, which then, of course, turns the crucifixion into what it was meant to be: light and glory and triumph, now and forever. Amen.